So, this car may bring a lot of questions. Why is it green? Why does it sound like the power steering pump's going out every time you give it gas? Many more than that. The answer to the first one, because it looks cool, and it's as obnoxious as the rest of the car is. The answer to the second one, because the power steering pump's going out, and because it's supercharged. The only issue is that when you have a powerful engine, the rest of the driveline does not always keep up with it, and I'm out of the frame. In this case, the transmission. No, it's not a 4T65E. I'm not that stupid. It's an F23 jet rag transmission. German transmission, built in Italy. Really weird. Only this specific version of the F23 only came in the Cavalier with a 2.2 like pushrod engine, OHV engine. So really weird setup. And I have a whole rant about referring to pushrod engines as OHV because all engines are overhead valve. Almost all of them are. Even if they're overhead cam, they're still overhead valve. But anyway, I fried the clutch in it. Not because I don't know how to drive stick. I learned driving on a car that was stick. And we still have the car. It's fine. It's because I chose the wrong clutch for it. eBay listing said it was an Exity clutch kit. Well, the pressure plate was Exity. The clutch wasn't. I don't know how you get just an Exity pressure plate, because I don't think you could just buy it from them like that, but maybe I'm wrong. But the clutch was something off-brand, didn't realize it, threw it in, and it slips now, so I have to disconnect everything and pull the engine and trans out together to replace the clutch, because you can't just pull one out, because it's way too fat for this car to come out like that. So here we go. But basically, when you give it gas, this thing goes wee, and if it's any gear above third gear, at a certain speed, it'll just redline the damn thing because the clutch slips. It's covered in mud because of a little off-road adventure I had, turning into what I thought was a parking lot. It was not a parking lot. Anyway, you know, it's got some stuff done to it. Gen 5 blower on a Series 2. Everything's all hacked together. But it holds really well. It just needs a few things done besides the clutch, which is why it's coming out. Because look at that power steering pump. Oh, yeah, thanks. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, it's hard to see. I gotta reset my camera, but terrible place to be. Also needs a motor mount in the back. Can't get to it without either removing the exhaust or pulling the whole engine. And since I'm pulling the whole engine, I don't have a reason to take the whole exhaust out. It's just gonna hang there. But yeah, this is what I'd be dealing with right now. So basically gonna start fuel lines, electrical connectors. Not really. Pull the fuel lines, pull the fuse box, disconnect the harness under the dash, pull that through, all the motor mount bolts, hoses, you know, and it's CV axles, and after that it's up and out. So I guess I gotta get to it. Now here's something that does have a bit of importance. There's this whole thing of disconnect the positive first, disconnect the negative first. I remember when I used to work at an auto parts store and we were going to test a customer's battery, and he yelled at me because I connected the negative terminal first instead of the positive with a battery tester that doesn't ground to anything except itself on the inside. And he goes, "You could have fried my car, blah, 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 blah. No, you only connect this one first no matter what." And there's some truth to that. Battery tester like that doesn't matter. If you're undoing a battery connection, you generally want to disconnect the negative first, because let's say you disconnect the positive first so you can ground out against something if it's like a longer handle or a ratchet you're using. But if you disconnect the negative and you ground to something, it's not a big deal. So there's my answer to that whole debate. Here's the point I've gotten to. Look at those brake lines, aren't they run so beautifully? Right by the shifter linkage, rubbing against each other. Nothing could go wrong. I gotta fix that. But now that I know it's an issue, that's good. I got the harness out. Yeah, pretty much everything electrical is disconnected. Like I don't have to worry about anything. I just have to disconnect all of the fluid lines now and the exhaust. Then it's CV axles need to be pulled, which I'm ready for that. There's a mount down there that needs to become undone. And then, get my camera on. Flashlight, I mean. And there's this mount down here that has to be undone after the CV axle comes out. And then basically what I have to do is this. Shove the engine that way with the engine hoist, pull the brake lines back, probably zip tie them to the strut with like a really long zip tie, and then pull up, have the shorter part of the chain, or the ratchet strap or whatever I use. Probably not a good idea to use a ratchet strap, so I'll use a chain, but have the shorter part on this side so it pulls up, the longer side on this side, so it pulls up at an angle, so that way the oil housing adapter does not hit the, look at how close that is. Yeah, so that was a pain. I actually took it off last time to install it. I really don't want to do that again, but if I have to, I will. Oh yeah, brake master cylinder needs to be moved out of the way. I did end up tying this off so I wouldn't have to bleed it again. I should be able to just plug it in, vacuum bleed it, just pump it a few times, and then send it on its way. Hopefully the clutch kit comes with the new throwout bearing, because I have a feeling this one might be bad, because it chatters like crazy at idle until you press the clutch and then it stops. But yeah. Oh yeah, and the front mount here, which I made, it actually uses the bell housing bolts. And the rear mount also, that's the one that needs a new bushing pressed in, because it's poly, and that one's rubber and it came undone. I guess those ones don't like vibration, or I didn't tighten it or something. And the engine started rocking back and forth, which ripped that one up. I temporarily installed that. Those welds weren't meant to ever last, and well, here I am. This is one of the cases where I can't blame myself for the poor designs on this car when it comes to maintaining it. Right there is the drain plug for the trans fluid, like right there. Look at the clearance. Not much between it and the subframe, and I don't know what tool I could get in there. Like, there are some things on this car that are my fault for being a pain in the ass, such as, look at how close the shifter cables are to this exhaust shield. You can't remove the shifter cables from the transmission with the engine and trans in the car. You have to pull them out, separate the engine and the trans, or pull the exhaust manifold. But look what's on top. Probably be easier to pull the exhaust manifold, but that's one dumb design. Another one would be this. See that idler pulley over there? You have to pull the engine out to remove it, whether it's dropping the subframe a little bit or jacking it up. But I'm looking at it, if I were to jack it up, I think the balancer would actually hit the subframe. Oh yeah, it definitely would, before you could get to that. Maybe. When I had to replace the crank sensor behind the balancer, I had to drop the subframe. And these things are all my fault. Could I have found ways around it? Absolutely. Cut the frame out and basically have the go as close to the strut as possible, like that. But I didn't do that, and that's my fault. And I'll eat it if anything happens. But this is just stupid, because this transmission came in the Alero, which is what this whole subframe is out of, because the Alero and the Malibu and the Grand Am are all the same car, and the Cutlass, exactly the same underneath. This is General Motors' fault. That is not my design, because this is completely stock how it goes together. But that is completely General Motors' fault. What a stupid design. You have to get like 7 U-joints and your own genie to get that drain plug out. This is going to be fun. Now, I'd like to clarify one thing, because I know I'm going to get comments, because I've had it happen on Facebook posts. This car does not exist. This is not a real car. What do I mean by that? Yeah, it does literally exist like it's a real thing, but General Motors never made this. This engine never came in this car. A lot of people confuse the Malibu for the Impala, which did have this engine. This transmission came in this platform, but not in this car, which is why I say some things are GM's fault, like that. I couldn't get this CV axle out for the life of me, so the trick was get some leverage with that against the trans case, and then come through with the jack and smack that thing at full force, which pulled it back and got it out. Now there's a puddle of trans fluid on the floor, and it's in my hair. Wonderful. Well, it's out. It's been out for a couple of days. I just haven't gotten to it till now. And I realized working on it in the morning is not a good idea. I walked by this evap tube. Yes, it still has all of its emissions equipment, believe it or not. And it snapped right off. Like, it's so brittle. I mean, it's so cold out here that like the plugs in my drain pan are broken off from me trying to open it. Michigan, it's single digits right now. Or at least it was a few minutes ago. So basically what I have to do is I have to take out these bell housing bolts, and then, you know, split the transmission from the engine and throw the new clutch in it, and then bolt it back. I did the power steering pump yesterday. There's that. And then I have to do both valve covers, which I have the gaskets for. It's going to be so much fun pulling everything off of it to get to them. But it has to be done because the valve cover is leaking onto the exhaust and it smells like burning oil. And it also goes through a lot of oil, but it doesn't burn it out of the exhaust. So we know where it's going. As you can see, I've made the wonderful choice of carefully planning where my drain pan goes, and now there's fluids everywhere. But yeah, it's so cold I can't even speak right. Like, I feel my mouth like shrinking. I can't even pronounce the words. But yeah, I mean, it's coming together. I get, well, actually still coming apart. But after that, there's the one mountain there to replace, which takes all of like 15 minutes, and then this is done. It's ready to go back in. Hopefully. I know I'm forgetting something. There's another thing that needs to be done. It was kind of a pain in the ass, but like, I remember. Also, this pulley needs to be inspected because the engine needs to be dropped out to replace it if it does fail. So yeah. Of course, with this being a German transmission, because Jetrag makes it, of course, American-ass car, like literally sold nowhere aside from North America, right? And I guess Central America, if you count Mexico, but some people consider it North American. It's a whole big thing. Anyway, and you have this German-ass transmission made in Italy, because that makes sense. It was a joint venture with GM. You know, they love to partner up with other companies and make questionable atrocities. This one, not so much. But, look, everything's like Torx, or like the opposite Torx, whatever you call it. I'm surprised I don't see triple squares, but I guess that's just a Volkswagen thing. Like, my A6 has triple squares. It's annoying. But anyway, yeah, all the bolts are funky, but I'm draining the fluid out of it. Running ATF right now, but it's Dextron 6. GM says that even though Dextron 6 and Dextron 3 are compatible in manual transmissions, you can't run Dextron 6. Dextron 3 is very hard to get a hold of now. And so the solution, I spilled a lot of fluids, but I got it cleaned up. I just gotta get some floor dry. The solution would be to run a universal ATF according to a TSV GM put out, from what I understand and from what I've read online. So because I work at a dealership, we get it in like big packs, and we got the nice BG stuff. So good, really good quality product right there. So that's what I'm throwing into this. Apparently that stuff makes it shift way smoother too. So we'll see. It already shifts very smooth. It's a very healthy transmission, but it's going to be a little thicker than that. But it also gets rid of the Jetrag rattle, which sounds like basically lifter tick at idle. That's the best I can describe it, but like they're all clattering at once, but they're not knocking, so it's like a and you press the clutch in and it goes away. Yeah, that's how you fix it. Very common issue. So I guess I'm draining out all the old ATF so I can put it on jack stands later and split it. Transmission's gonna go on that creeper, so I can just slide it off nicely, hopefully. If not, I mean, I picked this transmission up by hand, so it's not that bad. But yeah, give me a sturdy unit once it's done.